Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babylon Irons match review with myself and Mike. And today we're going to be dissecting the 2-1 win against AZ Alkmaar in the first leg of our Europa Conference League semi-final. So, Mike, we got the win, 2-1. Probably not the margin we expected or wanted to have in the first leg, but we battled back from going a goal down in kind of bizarre circumstances. But before we kind of get into that, tell me about the lineups and what did you think of how we kind of set out? And, Zuma was back, which was quite a surprise.
Yeah, I don't know who Kurt Zuma's doctor is, but I think anytime we have any ailments in the team, they need to go to see Kurt Zuma's physician because, first we told he probably won't be back to the end of the season, then he might be back, and then he's here for the Europa Conference. Personally, now I wouldn't use Kurt Zuma in a game unless it is Europa Conference. Wrap that guy up in cotton wool because when he's in that defense, we're a better defense. So, as far as I'm concerned, that guy gets wrapped up in cotton wool and he doesn't play a single minute of Premier League football between now and the end of the season because there's no point risking him getting injured. We're safe. I don't care what anyone's telling me. We are safe. We are so clear of the other teams and their form is so poor. It would take an astronomical effort from all of those teams below us, bar Southampton, in which to overtake us in the league. And I mean, as I say, all of them to overtake us, or even four of them to overtake us. It's so unlikely. The fact that the matter is, if you look at any odds, any predicted
500 to 1 or something like that.
Yeah, basically, it's 0.003% of a chance of us getting relegated. That is how minute it is. The chances statistically of us getting relegated. So, as far as I'm concerned, we are safe. And yeah, like Zuma does not play.
Well, he did play. He did play, and I thought he played pretty well throughout. Yeah. But yeah, as overall lineup, we played that obviously a back four. Wasn't too much change from the Man United game. Obviously, just Zuma coming in, and obviously Areola in goal for Fab. We started okay the first few minutes. We were on the front foot, and then we kind of just seemed to give AZ a bit more possession. We know they're a possession-based team, but for our approach in the home leg of a semi-final, do you think we were a little bit too cautious? Do you think we had the semi-final from last year in our mind, or what was it?
I don't think last year played in the mind. I just think it's an inherent of a Moyes team to feel out the game.
Yeah,
and we had a couple of early opportunities where we weren't really pressing, but we were holding the shape, and which made it difficult for them to play out from the back. Because if you notice in the second half, that just stopped. They just hit it long because they were getting caught and they were putting themselves under pressure. And, that was by the times when we stepped up, we made it difficult for them and they couldn't get out. And then they couldn't even really get on the second ball. So they really struggled. And we obviously caught them a couple of times, but didn't take advantage of it. Obviously, I think Paqueta early had a chance to play it through for Antonio. In fact, he had two chances in the first half played for Antonio.
Yeah,
both slightly overhit. I think we also had quite early a chance where Rice could have played. If he'd have played it inside, Paqueta's through clean for on goal, but he ends up putting it out to the wing to Ben Rama. And it was kind of the tail of the tape, I think, for the first 15 minutes or so. We were comfortable. I don't think we really had any kind of threat. They had the ball a bit, but we looked comfortable in our shape. We looked comfortable when we did press them. We didn't do it maybe enough with enough authority.
Yeah.
But when we got the ball and we looked to drive with it, particularly Ben Rama and also Paqueta in that first half.
I think it was more the like you mentioned, the feeling out process. Obviously, it's a big game. You can kind of understand it. We don't want to make that same mistake as we did with Frankfurt, where we conceded really early. So I kind of understand a little bit. But yeah, I think there were a few times in that first 15, 20 minutes, like you mentioned, where Paqueta in particular was picking up the ball in really good positions in the final third and had either Antonio to play through or on one instance, we were pretty much 3-on-1. Bowen was coming up on the right-hand side and he made the wrong decision. And it was that I feel like that was pretty much our story for the whole of the rest of the game as well, just lacking that clinical edge because like you mentioned, we were letting them play out from the back quite a lot, but they were really shaky defensively. They were leaving so many gaps and Antonio was in the first 15, 20 minutes, I think that was when he was most effective because he was actually running in behind.
I wouldn't even say it's that they were shaky. I think it was because I think that would suggest that they're, that they were unconfident. I don't think they were unconfident. I just think we had superiority, not only physically but also technically. And it sounds odd to say this, but even as a pace point of view, they weren't particularly that quick, really, either.
Yeah, they were quite slow. Yeah.
And I think what we saw was a team that was superior, playing really in second gear, that when they applied pressure, made the other team, I guess, creak under pressure. They were starting to buckle. I think had we scored one of those early opportunities, we would have run out very easy winners. Considering the hype that we've had around AZ ALKMAAR, rightly so, they were really poor against us. Now, they'll be happy with a 2-1 defeat, if we're honest, because they're still in it. So they'll be happy with that. But you could tell how much they were struggling by the fact that they had to resort to essentially tactics that we've seen for many years with Stoke and West Brom. And any kind of contact hit the floor. And this is something we've said before. We are not smart enough or cute enough to understand that when a team starts doing that, you need to change your approach when you are approaching them in duels and so on. Now, sometimes we did it right, but other times we were just too stupid. We just went in too quickly, and they went down. The ref bought it, and whilst it was incredibly frustrating, you can see players getting frustrated, particularly Paqueta. The ref was not really giving anything to the likes of Paqueta or Antonio, which saw them getting really frustrated quite a lot, and also heightened the mood in the crowd, which was already in good spirits anyway. But it was adding that, I guess, that feeling of indignation and that things weren't going our way. It felt like, oh no, this might go like Frankfurt. It had that feeling. It was starting to build like that because whilst we were in control, we weren't making those those final passes. We were having some brilliant work from Benrahma down that left-hand side. He had them completely and utterly done every single time he got the ball. The fear in that right back's eyes. I think Ødegaard was the other player on that side. Neither of them could get near him. He just took it past them every single time, putting some good deliveries, putting a couple of nice little crosses. Obviously, Paqueta had this kind of backwards header that he kind of just didn't really get himself in place.
Yeah.
It was just that. It was just constantly building like that. And we were just having these half chances, but chances really where you go, we probably should be scoring that. And
yeah, I think what was really frustrating as well, like you mentioned with the referee, and it was every little thing was going their way, and even the smallest things where they're time wasting from a goal kick. And you know what? Fair play to him for doing it. But what he was saying was, he was looking at our players saying, you're not out of your box, but they were clearly out of the box. And then every time they would just get their centre back to kind of come across from the ball, and their goalkeeper would just fake taking it. It was so obvious, and he should have booked him early enough to do that and recognise what the situation was.
Give him his due. He booked, I think the 57th, 60th minute. He actually then he finally then realised, actually, no, this is taking the mick now.
It should have happened earlier.
I think it was Geordie Cladzy. He gave the
it was the midfielder. Yeah, it was the midfielder.
So it would have been Cladzy because he was the centre midfielder. But again, it was that they were wasting time, and it was even just some of the easy calls, like throw-ins being given in the wrong direction, not getting corners when they were outright corners, and it was just like some of it was just baffling. There was an incident where Bowen was tackled from where we were. It didn't look like they got the ball at all. It looked like they actually took out Bowen completely when he was in the area. But obviously VAR, if it did review it, obviously found that it wasn't a foul, and obviously it was then a fair tackle and everything. But their goal came off the back of a foul. Where I sit directly behind that. Well, not directly behind it, but slightly to the side of that. And you could see it's a two-handed push in the back. Now, does Paqueta make the most of it? Yeah, arguably. And what was the thing that I found funny as well? The ref was there about to blow his whistle and call out for a handball.
Yeah, on Paqueta, yeah.
He was literally moments away from doing it, and then he let them play on. And what frustrated me in that was, one, the ref missed it. Outright, it was a foul. There's no two ways about it. It was a foul. Then what frustrates me is that we allow them to progress so high up the pitch. No pressure. Souček drops so deep into that back line that he's in no position to get on to Reinders, the goal scorer. And the whole first half, when they started getting back on the ball, what they did was they put both of their wingers up really high. They pushed up their fullbacks. Sometimes they'd invert those wingers to kind of keep the fullbacks high. But what they do, they keep their midfield too really deep. So they could constantly play it back into those two and recirculate. We didn't cotton onto it. It was so ridiculous. And Souček was so slow in coming out, just jogged out. And whilst Areola should have done better, in fairness, it was a good hit. He actually gets down too quickly because the ball, when it hits that bounce, it's actually already going up above his hand. So he's actually got himself too low, too quick. He should have saved it. Granted, I absolutely agree with that. But we've also got to remember the fact that this is a player that has hardly had any games, doesn't really have an eye in at all, because whenever he plays, he's almost a passenger and just has to watch the ball just roll into it. It's just like...
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but if that was Fabianski, everyone would be absolutely slating him, and I think he deserves to be criticised because it was a really simple save.
Yeah, exactly. If it was Fabianski, 100% deserves to be criticised. I can give a little bit of leeway to Areola in the sense of not having that match fitness, not really playing, and when he does play, he doesn't have very much to do. So having, I guess, a feel for flights of the ball and so on isn't necessarily as there. Yeah. Having said that, should have done a lot better. It was a good strike, but still should have done a lot better. And at that point, I genuinely felt this feels like Frankfurt.
Yeah, I think at that point, most people started to fear it because it was very much following the same pattern as they've got that goal now. And what we saw in this, we'll get onto it, but what we saw was them very just happy to have possession. And they were for majority of the game before they even scored the goal. So they then all of a sudden got that goal margin, just emphasized what they wanted to do. But yeah, like you mentioned, there was a clear foul in the build-up, but the reaction has to be better from us. You have to, it's just a very cliche, but you have to play to the whistle. Again, the referee does not cover himself in glory because he goes to blow it and everyone kind of stops, but you just have to then get back in and cover. And like you mentioned, Souček should have been out quicker. But again, Areola just has to save it. It is a routine save, and unfortunately he didn't. VAR, some reason, saw it as not enough to overturn it, which
I think it's also because of how far the ball had moved. Yeah, there's technically other stages of play because the ball goes into the wing before it's fed back into.
It's about 20 seconds after the instance, so they don't really go that far back. But they did look at it, so I think they just didn't think it was enough. It was a foul. He does make a most of it, but it's still a foul. But we came out second half. How were you feeling up to that kind of, for the first 10 minutes? I feel like we were prodding a little bit more. They were happy to just move the ball around. But there were times where we kind of just looked a bit lost. I think that was probably the best way to describe it. Just looked a little bit lost. And it took until, just before we got the equaliser, actually, Moyes was getting ready to make some subs. And then he kind of just stopped it because we got the goal back. But for that first 15, 20 minutes of the second half, what was kind of going through your mind with how the patterns were evolving?
What was going through my mind was there's too many players that are passengers in this game.
Yeah.
Too many players that are playing with their own self-interest rather than understanding as to what is... So what really bothered me was Benrahma had a brilliant game. And one of the reasons he had a brilliant game was because he held that wide space. He also had Paqueta working in a free role who was drifting from side to side in which to link play and get play going. In the end, Paqueta just took up a position on the left-hand side. Reason being, Bowen disappeared for pretty much the entire game. He completely fucked us, for lack of a better term, on that right-hand side for that first half. For the main reason that he very, very rarely was on that right-hand side and holding that wide space. The fact that when Kero got the ball and looked up, he was hardly there. And he's roaming inside. He then doesn't really link play. When he did get play, wasn't really doing much with it. Obviously, maybe hold on to it too long. And his overall play was bad. It wasn't helping us, especially when you looked at what Benrahma was doing. He was constantly holding wide and driving that ball forward, taking it down the wing, cutting inside, imploring the likes of Cresswell to get forward. Now, Cresswell didn't really do much in terms of getting in crosses, but the way Benrahma was working, it encouraged the likes of him to come forward. We constantly had Rice coming over to that side. We had Paqueta coming outside. We just overloaded them on that right-hand side because Benrahma was essentially demanding that we did that by constantly taking the ball and driving it forward. On the opposite side, no one went out there. Souček went out there once or twice, but that was it because no one else saw the point because the ball got out there. Bowen was nowhere where he can really receive the ball. So Kehra's just left on his own. He has to kind of turn and try and go back inside. And it really was frustrating because especially in that second half, there was so much space if we held that width. But it was just that lack of intelligence to go, I need to hold wide for a bit. Do that for about 10, 15 minutes and then start coming inside. Because then they're going to start it. And he didn't do that. I think there was a number of players who didn't really offer much. I think Kehra was fine defensively, doesn't bring much going forward. So, especially in the first half, I don't think Rice was really at it either. Seems to at times be going a bit through the motions, but I will actually caveat that with what AZ Alkmaar did very well is that they kind of shadowed Rice and they made sure they put themselves in positions where they kind of cut off the passing lanes, which meant he had to drop into our back three a lot.
Yeah, it was only till later on where we started to pick up the ball more. They were tiring.
Paqueta was getting the ball and driving forward. He was trying to make things happen, but it was just that final weight of pass or that final pass was missing. Antonio, again, a lot of endeavour, but at times probably could do a bit more in terms of his pressing and so on. Obviously Benrahma was the best player on the pitch in that first half. He was incredible. He had a couple of good opportunities. I think probably one or two of them where he tried to be unselfish and to put the ball in. Because I think he put it in for Benrahma. Sorry, the Paqueta header. I know he put dinked one in, but just missed Bowen's head as well.
Yeah.
Again, I think he just... maybe if he's should have been a bit more selfish on a couple of those opportunities and just tried to curl it in because he had a really
he did in the first half, didn't he? I forgot to mention that. Ryan made a really good save, and I think like you mentioned, we were going down that left hand side a lot. Paqueta just instinctively drifted to that side because of what Benrahma was doing. And I don't know whether it was tactical or not with Bowen coming inside because it's rare that we see him do that for so long, but when you have someone like Kehra behind you who isn't the best going forwards like we saw, I mean, especially in the second half, he had a couple of instances where he got forward into really good positions and then just didn't really know what to do with it. He was either cutting inside on his left and just floating one in, or he was just kind of stuck. So with what Bowen should have recognised in the match is, let me just pull out wide, because what AZ were doing, they were happy to be kind of compact in that shape. So what Benrahma noticed was, let me go wider and let me isolate their fullback who just does not fancy it. And Bowen should have done that because their left back was on a yellow card pretty early on.
Yeah,
so he could have done that exact same thing the other side, and we probably would have found it a lot easier to get through.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, I think their right back was on a yellow card as well. And it's at that point, again, that's one of the reasons you couldn't get close to Benrahma, because it was just, if he does, he's off. And that's the thing. Sometimes it's that understanding of, oh, hang on, I need to go 1v1 against him now. Because if I get 1v1 against him and I do him and he just taps me, he's gone. Yeah. And it's not, I think that we lacked some of that intelligence on the pitch and maybe in the dugout. And again, what concerned me was our lack of intensity when we pressed. We only played in patches with any kind of intensity. And that was the worry going into the second half, is that we was going to follow the same kind of pattern. And we didn't really come out like we did against Man United. Against Man U in that second half, we at times steamrolled him. We gave him a lot of the ball, but when we got it, we steamrolled forward. And whilst Antonio put in a lot of good work and was hard to handle, he also at times makes it very difficult for a ref to give a decision, because you see how strong he is. And then he gets one or two genuine fouls go against him, or he tries to play for a foul. And whilst it probably is, it's like you've just probably like a minute or two before had the same kind of incident and you've rolled the player, you've shown great strength. It's difficult now for the referee to then go, well, maybe that one is a foul. And I do think at times he is hard done by because of his size and the way he works. But, the ball was bouncing off him a few times and things like that. It was frustrating. He did have a couple of passes where, again, much like Paqueta, I'm not just saying this is just Antonio, made that wrong pass or the wrong decision in that final third when we could have been better. But what did happen again is, I think if we had not played Benrahma, I don't think we would have got that result.
He was on it. He was definitely on. And I think people.
He nearly had a little Messi moment, didn't he? He picked the ball up in our own half and took it past about 4 of their players down that left-hand side and drove forward.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Benrahma is the biggest confidence player I've seen in such a long time, because when he's confident and on it, like, the stuff he does is outrageous, but it's just when he's not on it and the crowd's on his back or whatever, then you start to see the mistakes happen. But what he did do was get us back into the match with just under 25 minutes left, and it came through a penalty once again. And we were working the ball nice. I think we started to get a little bit desperate. The crowd were getting anxious. And I think, you know, compared to that Man United game, we were 1-0 up at halftime. So in the second half, it suited how we wanted to play, which is probably why we were playing so well to start with. But with this one, it was such a tense situation, and we were starting to get a little bit desperate with how we were trying to open them up. But then we did with a really good cross in. I think it was Paqueta. And Bowen was at the back post, and he goes for the header. And to be fair to Bowen, it was pretty brave, because he knew he was either going to get clattered by a defender or the goalie, and the goalie just makes a really bad decision, misses the flight of the ball, and just punches him in the face. Clearest penalty ever. And yeah, I think the penalty itself was absolutely brilliant. You know, the keeper actually moves before the ball is even kicked. He recognizes Benrahma's going that way, but it's in the side netting. He's actually hit the side of the net, so you wouldn't save it. You would not save it because he's moved, and you still get it in that position. So I think people will say Benrahma is just a bit of a penalty merchant this year, but look at what he's done.
To be honest, I don't care about that, because let's face it, the penalty merchant thing is used in which to deride a player and yet elevate another, right? So it was used to elevate Mark Noble because he was the penalty king. So if you're going to use it to elevate a player like Noble and be like about how brilliant he was at penalties, and we've got a penalty, we're safe now, we've got this man who's going to do it. Whenever we got a penalty, we're good. No one then talked about him not getting, but because it's Benrahma, it's it's Benrahma, or he's only scored from penalties. And then when he scored against Man United from an open play, it's only because the goalkeeper messed up. It's like the mental gymnastics is just absolutely hilarious. It's just any reason not to get behind the player and to have a player to have a moan at is pathetic. And the fact of the matter is, who cares what type of goal he is scoring? Harry Kane's made a career out of scoring goals. Does anyone talk about him just being, a penalty merchant? And no, they talk about him being the leading goal scorer for Tottenham, potentially going to be the leading goal scorer in Premier League history. He's going to be the leading goal scorer for England. There's a shitload of those penalties, but it's not the main conversation, and it's not used in which to deride him. If you're going to deride a player, you deride him for having an incredibly strong asset. You're deriding him for utilising an incredibly strong asset and scoring penalties, which have resulted in us winning games or drawing games in many cases. And that is something you're using in which to batter him with. Have a word with yourself. Like, seriously, there's many things you can have a go at with Benrahma, but the fact that you're using penalties in which to make a statement about the use and effectiveness of that player is just laughable. It really is. There's so many things you can say. And last night, as you say, brilliant confidence player. He made a lot of people look very stupid. Now, if he backs it up with another game like that, again, his problem is his consistency.
Yeah.
And as we've always said, when a player plays badly, they get criticised. It's only fair. When they play well, they get praised. Benrahma last night was superb and a class apart. He dragged players into that game. He dragged us forward and out. I think our centre-back pairing, whilst again at times looked a bit shaky under some of those diagonal balls from them, otherwise was fairly strong. He actually brought the ball out of defence brilliantly a couple of times. He even at one point went on a rampage and run down the left side. Whipped in a superb cross with so much pace that literally all it needed was someone to run at the front post, get the slightest of touches, that's flying in the back of the net. No keeper saving it because it was so much pace on it. And that's one of the things that was annoying me with Souček, is that in years gone by, I know he's not been at us for a huge amount of years, but he was bursting to get into the area. It's just so lethargic at the moment. And whilst he kind of gets the ball, he knocks it on, and he's just still quite ineffective. He's very good defensively. He works within the team to a point, and then it becomes a bit of a hindrance. And he didn't do a bad job yesterday, but he didn't do a great job. I think that was the thing that we saw of most players. They did well-ish. Paqueta was fantastic and absolutely brilliant. apart from a few sometimes with that final ball. But I will not criticise some of those final ball attempts because the intention was clear that he's looking to make things happen.
I slightly disagree with that because Paqueta has the ability to play a very easy pass in certain situations, but he'll try something a little bit different. I think I would never criticize him if he's trying to pull off something in a difficult situation. Never ever, because he's trying to be creative. But when it's a simple pass and we say like 3-on-1 with Antonio and Bo on either side, you have to make the pass because in those situations we need to be clinical. We have to understand in those moments that we need to, because Moyes, like you mentioned, lives on these moments that we create. So I think he had a decent game, and I think he could have done better with those passes. But we did manage to get back into the game after that penalty, and we actually took the lead just 8 minutes after that with Antonio, and it came from a corner. It looked like from open play we were struggling as well to kind of create much, and yeah, the ball kind of comes in. It kind of then comes out, falls to Rice on the edge, on the left hand side of the box. He whips in a very good ball.
It's a nice little float, yeah.
Yeah, he picks it out really well because it could have been easy to just pump it in there and just hope that someone gets there, but he actually picks out again. And everyone at the other end of the stadium thought it was already a goal because they sort of cheered because everyone.
No, I think they were shouting to claim handball because when the defender puts it, because he gets it with his heel, but he then hits his left hand. So he hits his right heel and his left hand is kind of coming out, and then it hits that. So funny enough, that sequence just laid it into the path of Antonio, because where we were down our end, we was looking, going, it went in, but it's just that moment of, I bet he's going to say there's a foul in there.
What happened? Like,
you couldn't really see what was happening from where we were. So it looked maybe like, maybe someone's gone in the goalkeeper, because it was just seemed a bit subdued at first. There was that moment of, oh no, this is not going to be a goal. And then
it was actually a really good clearance off the line. I don't know how their defender got their right foot up, but what I will say with Antonio is, people will be critical of him, but he will turn up in those moments when we need him, and he was there. There's exactly what we wanted someone to be, is that instinct to be in the box and finish it when we need him to.
And in fairness to him, he did say after the game, look, it wasn't my best game, it wasn't a great game, but I got the goal, and that was the win. And he's right. It's a fair assessment. He didn't have a great game. At times his hold-up play was poor. Some of the easy passes that he could have had and put someone through, again, you just watch it and go, what was in your mind at that point, kind of thing. It was a very Antonio performance where things were bouncing off him, wasn't getting fouls, was getting frustrated, having moments of brilliance, and then just scoring a poacher's goal.
Yeah.
And it was very much like the Antonio that where you just sit there and go, I am so frustrated with him, but I'm so happy that he's got the winner. You know, it's that kind of game where you just walk away going, he's got the winner, he's going to get the praise for the winner. But at times, what the hell? But I think, again, that was something reflected across a lot of that team. You know, until the 60th minute, I don't think we really played with any kind of true kind of cohesion. I think players were trying, certain players I think were trying to drag us forward. I think in this first half in particular, Paqueta at times was just driving that ball through the heart of their midfield. And the second half was doing it a bit more. I think, you know, to be fair and to credit ALKMAAR, one of the reasons why we struggled at times is because they essentially had a blitz defense. They threw 2-3 players into a challenge almost every time we got the ball, especially on Paqueta, which is why at times I think he did rush 1 or 2 because he knew that it was coming and he had to get it out of his feet quick enough. But there were times where he used his body brilliantly, you know, it's to shield the ball and to kind of disguise what he was doing. Obviously, Ben Rama, you know, I don't think there's enough superlatives in which to describe his performance yesterday. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, I think when I look at Antonio, I think the only thing I can say was he's industrious. It wasn't anything brilliant. It was a very industrious performance, which
I do feel for Antonio, because there were times yesterday where he was clearly fouled, but there were also times in the second half where he wasn't. He went down too easy, but overall, he had a decent game, and without him in that team, we're always going to struggle in the system we play. So it is important because he actually was limping after the game as well. So hopefully he'll be fit.
Quite a severe limp as well.
Hopefully it's just kind of a knock or something from one of the tackles, and he'll be all right for next week. But mean, the biggest thing for me was that we came back from behind and we won the game, and we showed that intent in a massive semi-final. You know, people need to realize that this was a huge game for us, and it was important to win the match as a minimum. You know, it was very easy in the 65th minute. People were probably thinking at around that time, God, take a draw right now. Where in actual fact, a draw wouldn't have been good enough. It wouldn't have been good enough. Yeah, exactly. So we go into the second leg next week with a goal advantage. We haven't lost in the competition yet, touch wood. But if we carry on that that form and continue how we have been, we will go through. I have no doubt in my mind, because that is now going to suit us and suit Moyes to a T. Being that goal up, being able to play away from home the way he wants to play. And I can see it being similar to the Lyon situation, where if we get ahead in the game, we'll go 2-3-0 up. So I think there are positives to take. Like you mentioned, it wasn't an amazing performance by any stretch. It was okay. It was decent enough, and it got the job done. And it took someone like Ben Rama to kind of carry us through those moments of difficultness. So I think we can be pretty happy. I think some people were a bit deflated after the match. Some people were happy with the win. I'm happy with the win. You know, we've won the first leg. We've got to be happy with that, because it could have been a lot worse. So having said all that, I think we're going to be in agreement with the kind of standout players. So, Mike, who is the man of the match for you?
Yeah, but before we get on that, one thing I will say is a player we've really been heavily critical of came on the pitch and did quite well last night in Danny Ings. Yeah. I think he came on, he connected play. I think had he gambled in one incident in particular, when Bowen put a ball across the face of the goal, again, we need players also to learn they need to attack that front post, attack the far post.
Yeah.
He would have had a tap in, and he would have been actually deserved, because he came on, he did well, he linked play. It was the best he's actually looked in a West Ham shirt.
It was.
And, I thought he did quite well. I was quite happy to see him do that, actually. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think it was a great game. I'm one of those ones that came out a bit deflated and frustrated with that performance. I don't think it was good enough, in all honesty. And the reason I say it wasn't good enough is because ALKMAAR were poor last night. They were poor. Not because they're a poor team. It's because actually at times we made them look very ordinary. Yeah. And that was without really getting out of any kind of gear. That's what frustrated me, is that we should have buried them in that first half, regardless of the referee. And again, credit to the players, great maturity. As you say, we've done well in this to fight back, but I think the maturity not to get involved with the referee like we did in those Frankfurt games, showed that the players have learned. They set it all to one side and just continued to go. So I think we have to praise, whilst performances weren't there, mentally, I think the players were.
Yeah.
But in answer to man of the match, player on the pitch, it absolutely was Ben Rama. I don't think there's any competition at all. I think it'd be mad to suggest anyone else, in all honesty. Ben Rama was best player on the pitch by a mile.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the easiest man in the match we'll have all year. But we now go into the Brentford game in a couple of days, and I'm hoping we just rotate. I think, like you mentioned, we're pretty much safe. So it makes sense to just rotate the hell out of the squad, and then next week go in there fresh, and hopefully we will be booking our place to Prague in the final.
So Frankie, what would you do? Because I know what I've put out this morning, what I would do personally. The only first team player for me would be Fabianski, and other than that, it would be the only player playing from the team last night would be Kieran. That's only on the assumption that Soufal is back on Thursday. But otherwise, it would just be completely new 11 with Fornals, Downs, and Lanzini playing centre mid. I'd give Kadua, after a fantastic season with the under-18s and as the captain under-18s, scored against Man City youth team as well. Unfortunately, we didn't win the overall under-18 title, because obviously you have a kind of a playoff final game to kind of be crowned it overall champion. He scored in that as well. I would give him his debut. Of all of the under-18s who have been given debuts this year, like Casey, Charles, Mabama, and so on, he is the one probably who deserves it the most. So for me, I'd be playing him to rest Bowen. I think anyone who has a chance or is going to play against ALKMAAR need to be rested. I just don't see the point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would do the same. I think we can pretty much go man for man in terms of replacing, especially through the attack and midfield.
Yeah.
I think the only place we can't is defense, where we'll probably have to play one of Kera or Gerd. But I think overall we should be able to.
Ogbonna and Kera. I think that's
Ogbonna should be back because he only had an illness, so we can play Ogbonna in that match.
Yeah.
Absolutely, do not put Zuma anywhere near that stadium, not even on the bench.
We need to put him in, those Zorb bubbles. He just needs to be in one of those. Everywhere he goes in one of them, so he can't injure himself.
Honestly, he'll probably still find a way to get injured, but no, definitely rest up, and then hopefully we can go into that second leg fully fit and fully fresh, and try and get to the final. So it was frustrating last night, but it was an important victory, and we've got ourselves one step closer to that final. And we can now go away to AZ with a bit more happiness, because we were struggling for a lot of yesterday, and we did find ourselves 1-0 down. But hopefully the performance will improve next week, and we'll see a much better West Ham team against AZ. But it's going to be a tough game, so we will break that down next week. We'll break down the Brentford match coming up this weekend, and hopefully it will confirm our survival. I think we only need Leeds and Leicester to lose, and they're playing Newcastle and Liverpool, so it could be that we're mathematically safe as well. So I think we're good. I think that will be it for us. I think we're pretty much safe, and we can focus on the Conference League. So
we are safe. I've said it since the Bournemouth game. I'm not going to change my opinion. We are safe. So therefore, the Brentford game is a dead rubber. You rotate the hell out of it, and you put everything into AZ Alkmaar. And then against Leeds, you can play your first team, get the draw, because that's all we're going to need. If we get a draw against Leeds, they cannot get past us. Leicester, exactly. If either Leicester or Leeds lose this weekend, mathematically, we cannot be relegated.
I think they both need to lose.
So if they both lose that game, we are mathematically safe. So it's just as simple as that. They've neither one. I think Leicester have got 1 win in 5. Leeds have got 0 wins in 5. We're not, the fear mongering that we still see, I think, is a bit over the top. You're essentially asking those teams below us to do something they haven't done all season and get 3 wins on the bounce to send us down.
We're fine. We're good. So let's wrap it up, because we could go into this in more detail. But hope you guys enjoyed the review. Hope you enjoyed the match last night, those of you that went, and we'll be looking forward to the second leg next week. I'm sure most people are already planning their week ahead to kind of anticipate that match. But that's all for today. Make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are new around here, and Mike, until next time.
Come on, you Lions.